The warning light blinked red on the control panel. Doyen rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the screen. Another distress signal, the third one this month in this cursed sector of space. He should ignore it. That was the smart thing to do. Pirates love to use fake distress signals as bait. They would wait for some helpful fool to show up, then strip the ship for parts and leave the crew floating in space. Doyen had heard too many stories like that, but his hand hovered over the controls anyway. He couldn't help it. 10 years as a colony medic had trained him to respond to emergencies. Old habits died hard, even out here in the black where nobody cared if you lived or died. The signal was weak. Very weak. If it was a trap, it was a poor one. Real distress beacons were loud and bright, designed to scream across star systems. This one barely registered on his sensors. He had only caught it because his route took him close to the asteroid field. Doyen made his decision. He changed course toward the signal. His ship, the Wandering Star, was old. The hull had more patches than original metal. The engine made a grinding sound that worried him every time he pushed the throttle. But she was reliable. She had kept him alive for 5 years of hauling cargo between colonies. That counted for something. The asteroid field loomed ahead. Massive rocks tumbled through space in a slow, deadly dance. Doyen navigated carefully between them. His hands were steady on the controls. He had done this before. Not often, but enough times to know the risks. The signal grew stronger as he approached. His scanner picked up a ship ahead. It was small, maybe a scout vessel. The design was unfamiliar. Not human. The hull had a strange, scaled texture that caught the light from distant stars. Doyen felt his pulse quicken. First contact situations were always dangerous. Humans had met dozens of alien species in the past century. Some were friendly. Some were not. And some were just different. Different enough that simple misunderstandings could turn deadly. The ship was damaged. He could see that even from a distance. Scorch marks covered one side. Part of the hull was torn open, exposing the interior to space. The vessel was tumbling slowly, out of control. He opened a communication channel. "This is the cargo vessel Wandering Star. I received your distress signal. Do you need assistance?" Silence answered him. Then static. Then a voice, sharp and clear despite the interference. "Human vessel, leave this area immediately. Your presence is not required." The voice was female. The words were spoken in perfect Earth standard, but the accent was strange. Each word was clipped, precise, almost angry. Doyen blinked in surprise. "Your ship is damaged. Your beacon is active. I'm here to help. I did not request help from your kind." The voice was colder now. "My people will retrieve me. Depart before you complicate the situation." He checked his scanner again. The alien ship's life support was failing. Oxygen levels were dropping fast. She had maybe 6 hours left. Probably less. "Your beacon is too weak to reach beyond this sector," Doyen said carefully. "I'm the only ship in range. Let me dock with you. I can transfer supplies at least." "No." The word was final, absolute. "I do not need your assistance. I do not want your assistance. Leave." Doyen sat back in his chair. He should listen. She was making it clear. She didn't want help. It wasn't his problem. He could report the location to the nearest station and let them handle it. That was the legal thing to do, but 6 hours, maybe less. He studied the damaged ship on his screen. Through the torn hull, he could see emergency lights flickering. Someone was alive in there. Someone who was going to die because they were too proud to accept help. "What's your name?" he asked, a long pause. Then, "That is not relevant." "Mine is Doyen. I'm a cargo hauler. Before that, I was a medic on the colony at New Sol. I've seen a lot of people die because help came too late." He kept his voice calm, conversational. "I've also seen people die because they were too stubborn to ask for help when they needed it. Your experience does not concern me, human." "You're right." "It doesn't." Doyen checked his fuel levels. "But here's what does concern me. There are raiders in this sector. 3 wrecks in the past month. They patrol the asteroid fields looking for salvage. If they find you before your people do." He let the sentence hang. She would understand the implications. Another long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter but no less hostile. "My name is Tyra. I am a commander of the Velarin Imperium. My ship was ambushed while conducting diplomatic business. I am injured, but I will defend myself when the raiders come." Velarin. Doyen searched his memory. He had heard of them. Reptilian species, proud warriors, military culture. They valued strength and honor above everything else. Accepting help from outsiders, especially from humans they considered weaker, would be seen as shameful. "Commander Tyra," he said, "I respect your position, but if raiders find you, they won't give you a chance to fight. They'll just blow your ship apart and take what they want from the wreckage. Then I will die with honor." Her voice was firm. "That is acceptable." Doyen felt frustration building in his chest. He had dealt with stubborn patients before, people who refused treatment because of pride or fear or tradition. Most of the time he could convince them. Sometimes he couldn't. Those were the memories that haunted him at night. "Is dying alone in space really honorable?" he asked. "Or is it just wasteful? You know nothing of honor, human." "Maybe not." He moved his ship closer to hers, keeping a careful distance. "But I know about survival. And right now you're choosing death over pride. That seems stupid to me, not honorable." He expected anger. Instead, he heard something that might have been a laugh, a bitter, painful sound. "You are impertinent. I've been called worse." Doyen watched his scanner. Something was moving at the edge of his range. Multiple contacts, coming this way. "Commander, we have a problem." "I'm picking up 3 ships heading toward this position." "They're moving fast," the line went quiet. Then very softly, "Raiders. Probably. They're 2 hours out, maybe less." He calculated quickly. "I can get you out of here. My ship is fast. We can reach the nearest station in 3 days." "No, I will remain with my ship. You'll die." "Yes." She said it simply, without fear. "But I will not shame my people by accepting rescue from a human cargo hauler. That is my choice." Doyen stared at his screen, at the dying ship, at the approaching raiders, at all the bad options in front of him. He should leave. She was making her choice. He had to respect that. But 6 hours was now maybe 4, and those raiders were getting closer every minute. His hand moved to the controls. He began calculating an approach vector to her airlock. Sometimes he thought the right choice wasn't the one people wanted you to make. Doyen's ship moved closer to the damaged vessel. He was careful, keeping his approach slow and steady. The last thing he needed was to accidentally bump into her ship and make things worse. "What are you doing?" Tara's voice cut through the comm system. She sounded suspicious now, alert. "Getting a better look at your damage," Doyen lied. Well, half-lied. He was looking at the damage, but he was also lining up with her airlock. "I told you to leave." "I heard you. I'm thinking about it." He wasn't. He had already made his decision. But he needed time to get into position. "Tell me about your diplomatic mission. What were you carrying that raiders would ambush you for?" "That information is classified. You're probably going to die in a few hours." "Does classification really matter?" Another of those bitter laughs. "You are very direct, human. Life's too short for dancing around the truth." His ship was almost in position. "Besides, if those raiders get here first, they'll take whatever you're protecting anyway." A long pause. He could hear her breathing over the comm. It sounded labored, painful. She was hurt worse than she was letting on. "I carry a data core," she finally said. "Proposals for an alliance between the Velaran Imperium and 3 neighboring systems. Trade agreements. Defense pacts. It represents years of negotiation." "Sounds important?" "It is. If the raiders take it, they could sell the information to our enemies. It would destroy everything my people have worked toward." Her voice grew harder. "Which is why I cannot allow myself to be captured. I will destroy the core in my ship before I let that happen." Doyen felt a chill. She meant it. She would blow herself up rather than let the data fall into wrong hands. That was the kind of dedication military cultures bred into their people. "Honor above life, or," he said carefully, "you could let me get you out of here, along with your data core. Then nobody gets it except the people who are supposed to have it." "No, I will not." Her words cut off suddenly. "Commander? Tara?" Doyen checked his instruments. Her ship's power had just dropped. Life support was failing faster now. "What's happening?" "Secondary systems are shutting down." She sounded strained. "The damage is worse than I calculated. I have perhaps 3 hours now. Maybe 2. Then let me help you." I said, "No." Each word was forced out between what sounded like gasps of pain. "Your help is not wanted. It is not needed. My people will come. Your people are days away, even if they left the moment you were attacked." Doyen moved his ship the final few meters. His airlock was now aligned with hers. "I'm docking whether you like it or not." If you dock, I will activate defensive measures. I still have weapons, he believed her. But he also heard something in her voice that she probably didn't want him to hear. Fear, not fear of dying. Fear of being seen as weak. Why is accepting help so terrible? He asked quietly. In my culture, refusing help when you need it is seen as foolish, not brave. Your culture is not mine. But her voice was softer now. Tired. You do not understand what it means to be Valeran. We are warriors. We pride ourselves on strength and independence. To require rescue from another species, especially humans, she trailed off. Especially humans? What's that supposed to mean? No offense intended. But humans are physically weaker than Valeran, smaller, less durable. In our culture, being saved by someone weaker brings great shame. Doyen snorted. So you'd rather die than admit a weak human helped you? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It is our way. Your way is going to get you killed. He initiated the docking sequence. Magnetic clamps extended from his ship toward hers. Stop. I am ordering you to stop. Her voice rose in anger, but underneath the anger he heard something else. Desperation. Sorry, Commander. I don't take orders from the Valeran Imperium. I'm just a human cargo hauler, remember? Too weak and small to know better. Alarms blared in his cockpit. She had activated her weapon systems. A targeting lock appeared on his screen. She was actually going to shoot at him. Last warning, human. Disengage or I will fire. Doyen's heart pounded. This was insane. He was trying to save her life and she was threatening to kill him. But he couldn't stop now. Those raiders were getting closer. If he left her, she would die. That was certain. He thought about his time as a medic, about the patients who had fought him while he tried to treat them. People in shock, people in pain, people who didn't understand they were dying. Sometimes you had to help them despite their protests. Sometimes saving a life meant ignoring what they told you they wanted. I know you won't shoot, he said quietly. Why would you think that? Because you're rational. You know I'm your only chance. And because, he paused, choosing his words carefully, because I think part of you wants to survive. Even if it means accepting help you don't want. Silence. The targeting lock remained, but she didn't fire. The magnetic clamps connected with her ship. A solid thunk echoed through both vessels. Docking complete, Doyen announced. I'm coming over. Do not. I forbid it. He was already moving. He grabbed his emergency kit and headed for the airlock. I'll just check your ship's systems from the outside. Make sure everything is stable. I won't even come inside if you don't want me to. You are lying. Yeah, probably. He sealed his helmet and started the airlock cycle. But what are you going to do about it? I could seal my airlock. Prevent you from entering. You could, but your life support is failing. You're injured, and those raiders will be here in less than 2 hours. He waited while the air cycled out of the lock. So go ahead, seal it. Choose death over accepting help. I can't stop you, the inner door opened. Space greeted him, cold and infinite. His ship's airlock was connected to hers by a flexible tunnel. He could see her outer door at the far end. He waited. 5 seconds. 10. 15. The light above her airlock turned green. She had unlocked it. If you enter my ship, Tara said, her voice barely a whisper now, I will never forgive you for this shame. I can live with that. Doyen pulled himself along the tunnel. As long as you live too. You do not understand what you are doing. What this will cost me, then help me understand. Talk to me while I work. He reached her airlock and cycled through. The inner door opened onto a darkened corridor. Emergency lights cast everything in red shadows. There is nothing to say. You have made your choice. You have made it for both of us. She sounded defeated now. The fight had gone out of her voice. Doyen felt a twinge of guilt. But he pushed it aside. Guilt was better than regret. He could feel guilty about forcing help on someone who didn't want it. He couldn't live with the regret of letting someone die because he was too polite to interfere. Where are you? He asked, moving down the corridor. The ship's layout was unfamiliar, but emergency signs pointed toward the command center. He followed them. Forward compartment. Command station. Her breathing was definitely labored now. But I do not need... Her voice faded. Doyen moved faster, pushing off walls in the low gravity. He rounded a corner and found the command center. Tara was slumped in the pilot's chair. Even injured and barely conscious, she looked formidable. Tall, easily over 2 meters. Her skin had a faint greenish tint with patterns that might have been scales. Her face was angular, sharp, with large eyes that fixed on him with what could only be described as fury. "You came anyway," she whispered. "Stubborn human. Guilty." He opened his medical kit. "Now shut up and let me help you." She tried to speak, tried to protest, but her eyes rolled back and she slumped further in the chair, unconscious. Do-yoon got to work. He had maybe 90 minutes before the raiders arrived. Not much time at all, but it would have to be enough. Do-yoon moved quickly to Tara's side. His hands were steady despite the urgency. Years of medical training took over, pushing aside fear and doubt. He had a patient. That was all that mattered now. He pulled out his scanner and ran it over her body. The device beeped as it collected data. Velaran biology was different from human, but not so different that he couldn't work with it. 2 hearts instead of 1, denser bone structure, a secondary respiratory system in the chest cavity. But the basics were the same. Blood needed to stay inside the body. Bones needed to be straight. Organs needed to function. The scanner results made him wince. 3 broken ribs on the left side. Deep lacerations across her shoulder and back. Internal bleeding in the lower abdomen. She was in bad shape, worse than he had hoped. "Okay, Commander," he muttered, even though she couldn't hear him. "Let's see what we can do." First priority was stopping the bleeding. He found the worst laceration on her shoulder and cleaned it with antiseptic. The wound was deep, cutting through muscle. In a human, this would require surgery. He didn't have time for that. He would have to seal it and hope for the best. He pulled out a canister of medical foam. The label warned it was designed for humans only. He hesitated for just a moment. Using this on an alien could cause complications, but leaving the wound open would definitely kill her. No choice, really. He sprayed the foam into the wound. It expanded, filling the gap and hardening into a temporary seal. Tara's body jerked. Even unconscious, she felt the pain. But the bleeding stopped. That was what mattered. Next, the broken ribs. He couldn't fix those properly without equipment he didn't have, but he could stabilize them. He wrapped compression bandages around her torso, tight enough to prevent the broken bones from shifting. Her breathing was shallow and ragged, but it was breathing. The internal bleeding worried him most. His scanner showed fluid building up in her abdomen. If he were on a proper medical station, he would operate immediately. Here, in a damaged ship with raiders approaching, he had to improvise. He searched through her ship's medical supplies. The compartment was well stocked. Military vessels always were. He found what looked like coagulation boosters. The labels were in Velaran script, but the symbols were universal enough. He loaded a dose into an injector and pressed it against her neck. The injector hissed. Tara's eyes snapped open. They were golden, bright even in the dim light, and filled with confusion and pain. "You," she gasped. "You should not be here." Too late for that discussion. Do-yoon checked his scanner again. The internal bleeding was slowing. Good. "How do you feel?" "Like my ship exploded around me." She tried to sit up, failed, fell back with a groan. "What did you do?" "Stopped you from dying in the next hour." "You're welcome." He began packing his supplies. "Can you walk?" "I do not know." She looked down at herself, at the bandages and foam seal. Her face twisted with an emotion he couldn't read. Shame, anger. "You used human medical techniques on me. I used whatever would work. Don't worry, you'll live long enough to file a complaint about it." He helped her sit up. She was heavy, much denser than a human her size. "We need to get to my ship. Those raiders will be here soon. The data core." She looked around wildly. "Where is it?" "Still here." "Where is it?" She pointed to a compartment near the command console. "There, secure storage." Do-yoon retrieved it. The core was small, about the size of his fist, made of some crystalline material that glowed faintly blue. He tucked it into his pack. "Got it. Now let's go." "Wait." Tara gripped the armrest of her chair. "My ship, I cannot leave it. Protocol demands that I destroy it rather than let it fall into enemy hands. Your ship is barely functioning. Even if the raiders take it, they won't get much. That is not the point. It is the principle." She tried to stand. Her legs shook. She would have fallen if Do-yoon hadn't caught her. Forget principle. Focus on surviving. He pulled her arm over his shoulder, taking some of her weight. "We have maybe 20 minutes before those raiders get here. I need you to move. I am a Velaran commander. I do not flee from combat. You're not fleeing. You're making a tactical retreat with vital intelligence." He started moving her toward the corridor. She resisted at first, then reluctantly began to walk. Each step looked painful. Besides, you're in no shape to fight. Even you must see that. I see that I'm being dragged away by a human who will not listen to reason. At least you're seeing clearly. They moved down the corridor together. The ship groaned around them. Something sparked in the walls. The damage was getting worse. How did the raiders catch you anyway? Ambush 3 ships. They appeared from behind an asteroid cluster. My shields were down for routine maintenance. She paused to catch her breath. I destroyed one of their vessels before they disabled my weapons. They left me here thinking I would die slowly while they searched the debris field for salvage. But your distress beacon brought me instead. Yes. Lucky me. The sarcasm in her voice was thick, but underneath it he heard something else. Maybe gratitude. Or maybe he was imagining it. They reached the airlock. Doyen's ship was still connected, the tunnel between them intact. He helped her through first, then followed, sealing the hatches behind them. His ship's interior was cramped compared to hers. Everything was old and patched and held together with hope and spare parts. But it was functional, and right now functional was all that mattered. He guided her to the cargo hold where he had set up a temporary medical area. Lie down. I need to check your injuries again. She obeyed, moving slowly. Once she was settled, she looked up at him. Why? Why what? Why did you do this? You could have left. Should have left. I gave you every reason to abandon me. Her golden eyes studied his face. Yet you risked your life, violated my explicit orders, and now you are a fugitive from Velaran law for unauthorized boarding of a military vessel. Why, Doyen shrugged. He pulled out his scanner and ran it over her again. The internal bleeding had stopped completely. Good. Because you needed help. That is not a sufficient answer. It's the only one I have. He made adjustments to her bandages. Where I come from, you don't leave people to die if you can help them. It's not complicated. It is to me. She watched him work with an expression he couldn't interpret. In my culture, what you did would be considered an insult. You implied I was too weak to save myself. You were too weak to save yourself. You still are. He met her gaze. And there's no shame in that. Everyone needs help sometimes. Velaran do not. Well, this one did. He finished his examination and put the scanner away. You're stable for now. But you need real medical care. We're 3 days from the nearest station with proper facilities. Before she could respond, his proximity alarm blared. Doyen rushed to the cockpit. The screen showed 3 ships entering the asteroid field. They were moving slowly, scanning for salvage. Raiders. Terra appeared beside him, leaning heavily on the doorframe. They are here. Yeah. Doyen's fingers flew over the controls. He began powering down all non-essential systems. Lights dimmed. Temperature dropped. We need to hide. Your ship cannot fight 3 raiders. No kidding. He maneuvered between 2 massive asteroids. But we can hide. If we're quiet enough, they might not find us. The raiders were spreading out, searching the debris field methodically. One of them moved toward Terra's abandoned ship. Doyen watched on his passive sensors as they docked with it. They are boarding my vessel, Terra said quietly. Nothing we can do about that now. There are classified systems, security protocols. They cannot. You're safe. The data core is safe. That's what matters. He continued shutting down systems until only life support and passive sensors remained active. His ship was now nearly invisible, just another piece of metal drifting among the asteroids. They waited in the darkness. Neither spoke. Terra's breathing was the only sound, still labored but steady. On the screen, the raiders finished with her ship and began expanding their search pattern. One of them passed within 2 kilometers. Doyen held his breath. His ship's thermal signature was minimal now, but not zero. If the raiders had good sensors, they might detect the faint heat of life support. The raider ship drifted past. Continued on. Moved away. Doyen let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. That was close, Terra whispered. Too close. We need to wait until they leave completely before we power up again. Could be hours. I understand. She looked at him in the darkness. Thank you, human Doyen. Despite everything, despite the shame this brings me, I acknowledge that you saved my life. You're welcome. He smiled. See, that wasn't so hard to say, she actually laughed. It was brief and painful sounding, but genuine. You are insufferable. I've been told that before. They settled in to wait. Two unlikely allies hiding in the darkness while raiders prowled outside, neither certain what would come next. The minutes stretched into hours. Doyen watched the passive sensors while Tara drifted in and out of consciousness in the cargo hold. The raiders were thorough. They searched every piece of debris, every asteroid shadow, looking for anything valuable. One raider ship came back for a second pass. It moved slowly through the field, scanning everything. Doyen watched it approach his position. Closer, closer. His hand hovered over the emergency power controls. If they detected him, he would need to run. The wandering star was fast, but could she outrun 3 raiders while carrying an injured passenger? The raider ship stopped. It was less than a kilometer away now. Doyen could see the details on his screen. A medium-sized vessel, weapons bristling from its hull. Pirates had probably stolen it from some merchant fleet. They always used stolen ships, harder to trace that way. The raider's scanning beam swept across his position. Doyen held perfectly still, as if that would make any difference. His ship's systems were cold. Life support was at minimum. They were just another rock in a field of rocks. The beam moved on. The raider ship continued its patrol. Doyen finally breathed again. Are they gone? Tara's voice came from behind him. She had somehow dragged herself to the cockpit doorway again. Not yet. You should be resting. Cannot rest while enemies hunt us. She leaned against the wall. Her face was pale, covered in a thin sheen of sweat. How long have we been hiding? 4 hours. Maybe 5. My people should be looking for me by now. Maybe. But even if they are, your beacon was too weak. They don't know where to look. Doyen checked the sensors again. The raiders were finally moving away, heading toward the edge of the asteroid field. I think they're giving up. They've stripped your ship of everything valuable. Now they're moving on. Good. Tara slid down the wall until she was sitting. Then we can leave. Not yet. We wait another hour. Make sure they're really gone. She nodded. They sat in silence for a while. The only sound was the quiet hum of life support and Tara's labored breathing. Tell me about your world, she said suddenly. Doyen looked at her in surprise. Why? Because we have time. Because I am trying not to think about the pain, because... She paused. Because I want to understand why a human cargo hauler would risk everything for a stranger who rejected his help. He considered that. Earth is complicated, 7 billion people, hundreds of cultures. We spent most of our history fighting each other over land, resources, religion, skin color. Every stupid reason you can imagine. That sounds like most species. Yeah, but we learned something from all that fighting. We learned that working together was better than killing each other. Took us a long time to figure that out. A lot of people died before we did. He stared at the screen, watching the raiders shrink into the distance. I grew up on New Sol. That's a colony world about 60 light years from Earth. My parents were doctors. They taught me that helping people was the most important thing anyone could do. Your parents were doctors, yet you became a cargo hauler. Doyen's jaw tightened. There was an accident. Disease outbreak on the colony. Something new, something we hadn't seen before. I was working in the emergency clinic. We were overwhelmed. Too many patients, not enough supplies, not enough help. He stopped. The memories were still painful after 10 years. People died because I couldn't save them. Because I wasn't good enough. Because help arrived too late. That was not your fault. Maybe not. But I couldn't stay. Couldn't keep working as a medic, seeing sick people and remembering the ones I failed to save. He shrugged. So I bought a ship and started hauling cargo. Thought it would be simpler. Safer. Just moving boxes from place to place. Yet you still carry a full medical kit. Still respond to distress signals. Still risk your life to save strangers. Tara's voice was soft. You did not stop being a doctor, Doyen. You only changed where you practice. He had never thought about it that way before. Maybe she was right. What about you, he asked. How does a Velaran commander end up alone on a diplomatic mission? I volunteered. The assignment was considered dangerous. Other commanders refused. They said carrying diplomatic data made you a target for pirates and raiders. She smiled bitterly. They were correct, as it turns out. Why volunteer for something dangerous? Because I needed to prove something. To my people. To myself, she closed her eyes. 3 years ago, I commanded a squadron. We were ambushed, much like today. My ships were damaged. A neutral merchant vessel offered assistance. I refused. I said we would fight our way clear, that accepting help was beneath us. What happened? We fought, we lost. Half my squadron was destroyed. The other half barely escaped. Her voice dropped to a whisper. 23 warriors died because I was too proud to accept help when it was offered. Doyun understood now. So when I showed up today, I saw my past mistake repeating itself. But I could not seem to make a different choice. Pride is trained into us from birth. It is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. She opened her eyes and looked at him. Thank you for making that choice for me. You would have died. Yes, and the Alliance data would have been lost. And 23 deaths would have led to nothing. She managed a weak smile. Instead, an annoying human ignored my orders and saved me. I suppose there is a lesson in that. The sensors beeped. The raiders were leaving the asteroid field, moving away at high speed. They were gone, finally. Doyen started powering up systems. Lights brightened. Temperature began to rise. The engine came online with its familiar grinding sound. Now we can get out of here. Where are we going? Station 12. It's a neutral trading post 3 days away. They have a proper medical facility there. You need real treatment, not my field medicine. Station 12 is run by the Korean Consortium. They will alert the Velarin military. Probably. Is that a problem? Tara was quiet for a moment. My sister commands the nearest Velarin fleet. When she learns I required rescue from a human, she will be displeased. Displeased how? She may arrest you for unauthorized boarding of a military vessel. She may demand I face military tribunal for bringing shame to the Imperium. Tyra struggled to stand. Doyen helped her up. I am sorry. You saved my life, and now you may face punishment for it. We'll deal with that when it happens. He guided her back to the cargo hold. Right now I need you to rest. 3 days is a long time, and your injuries could still kill you if they're not properly treated. She laid down on the makeshift medical bed he had prepared. You are a strange human, Doyen. I get that a lot. In my culture, what you did would be considered either extreme bravery or extreme foolishness. Which do you think it is? She smiled. I have not decided yet. Doyen returned to the cockpit and set course for Station 12. The wandering star left the asteroid field behind, accelerating into open space. He checked his fuel reserves, his food supplies, his medical inventory. Everything was tight but sufficient. They would make it. Behind him, he could hear Tara's breathing gradually slow as she fell into deeper sleep. The medication was working. Her body was starting to heal. He had saved her, against her wishes, against protocol, against common sense. He had saved her because that was what he did. That was who he was, even if he sometimes forgot it himself. 3 days to Station 12. 3 days to figure out what came next. The stars stretched before him, cold and infinite and full of possibilities. Doyen guided his ship into the darkness, carrying his unlikely passenger toward an uncertain future. Whatever happened next, at least Tyra would be alive to see it. That was worth any punishment they might face. That was worth everything. Doyen woke to alarms screaming through the ship. He scrambled from his sleeping compartment to the cargo hold. Tara was convulsing on the medical bed, her body rigid, golden eyes rolled back to show only whites. No. He grabbed his scanner. The readings made his heart sink. Her body was rejecting the human coagulation boosters he had used. What worked for humans was poison to Velarin biology. The internal bleeding had started again, worse than before. He searched frantically through the medical supplies he had taken from her ship. There had to be something. The labels were all in Velarin script, but he had learned to recognize the medical symbols. Coagulation, blood pressure, respiratory support. There, a silver injector marked with the symbol for blood clotting. He loaded it and pressed it against her neck. The hiss of the injector was followed by a moment of terrifying stillness. Then Tara gasped. Her body relaxed. The convulsions stopped. Doyen checked the scanner again. The bleeding was slowing. Her vital signs were stabilizing. She was going to live, for now. He sat back against the wall, his hands shaking. That had been too close. He had almost killed her trying to save her. The irony was not lost on him. Tara's eyes fluttered open. What happened? Your body didn't like the human medicine I used. I gave you something from your own supplies. You're stable now. I feel terrible. You almost died. Again. Feeling terrible is an improvement. He managed a weak smile. I'm sorry. I should have checked for compatibility issues before using human treatments. You had no way to know. Velarin physiology is not common knowledge among humans. She tried to sit up. He gently pushed her back down. Rest, I mean it. No arguments this time. She was too weak to argue anyway. She closed her eyes and drifted back to sleep. Doyen stayed with her for the next 6 hours, monitoring her vital signs constantly. Every fluctuation sent his heart racing, but she remained stable. The crisis had passed. The second day brought different challenges. Tara developed a fever. Her body temperature climbed to dangerous levels. Doyen used cold compresses and fever reducers from her medical supplies, but nothing seemed to work. She drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling in her native language. Sometimes she seemed to think she was back on her ship, under attack. Other times she called out names he didn't recognize. "Stay with me, Commander," he said, wiping her forehead with a damp cloth. "You've made it this far. Don't quit now." In her delirium, she told him things about her childhood on the Velarin homeworld, about the military academy, where young warriors learned discipline and honor, about her sister Hyejin, who had always been the better soldier, the favorite child. "I tried so hard to be like her," Tara whispered. Strong, perfect, never needing anyone. Her hand gripped his arm with surprising strength. "But I am not her. I fail, I need help. I'm weak. You're not weak. You're injured. There's a difference." Velarin do not see a difference. Then maybe Velarin need to learn. He adjusted the cold compress. In human culture, admitting you need help is seen as brave. It takes courage to be vulnerable. She laughed weakly. "Your culture sounds very strange to me." "Your culture sounds strange to me too. We're even." By evening, her fever broke. She woke lucid and clear-eyed for the first time in 24 hours. "How long was I unconscious?" she asked. "Most of the day." "You had a high fever. You said some interesting things while you were delirious." She looked alarmed. "What kind of things?" "Mostly about your sister and your training." "Nothing too embarrassing." He handed her a water container. "Drink, you need to stay hydrated." She drank carefully. "I apologize for whatever burden my illness has caused." "Stop apologizing. This is what I signed up for when I decided to rescue you." He checked her bandages. "The wounds were healing well now. No signs of infection. You're going to be fine. Another day and a half and we'll be at the station. And then you will hand me over to Velarin authorities. I'll get you medical treatment. What happens after that is up to you." She studied his face. "You are not what I expected from a human." "What did you expect?" "The stories about humans say you are weak and emotional, that you form attachments too easily, that you cannot be trusted in matters of honor or combat. Well, I am emotional, and I do form attachments easily." He smiled. "As for honor and combat, I think we have different definitions of those words." "Explain." He thought about how to put it into words. "To humans, honor isn't about dying gloriously or refusing help. Honor is about doing the right thing even when it's hard, even when people tell you not to, even when it costs you something. That is a very different philosophy." "Yeah, it is." He began repacking the medical supplies. "But it's gotten us this far. Humanity survived everything. Wars, diseases, environmental disasters. We survived because we learned to help each other, to put aside pride and work together. The Velarin also survived many challenges. I'm sure you did. But did you survive by isolating yourselves and refusing to accept help? Or did you survive despite that?" She didn't answer, but her expression suggested she was thinking about it. The third day was quiet, almost peaceful. Tara was strong enough to sit up and move around the ship. She explored the wandering star's cramped interior with obvious curiosity. Doyen showed her the cockpit, the engine room, the cargo holds. She asked questions about everything. How old was the ship? How did the navigation system work? How did he manage long trips alone? "It gets lonely sometimes," he admitted. "But it's simpler than dealing with other people. No crew to manage, no one to disappoint. You speak as if you have disappointed many people, just the ones who mattered most." He showed her the engine, pointing out the various patches and repairs. "This ship is like me, old, damaged, held together by determination and spare parts. But she keeps flying. I do not think you are as damaged as you believe." He shrugged. "Maybe, maybe not." They ate together in the small galley. Doyen had basic rations, but Tara's military supplies included better food. They shared both, creating strange combinations that made them both laugh. Human food is very sweet, Tara observed, trying a ration bar. Velarin food is very chewy, Doyen replied, struggling with something that looked like dried meat but had the texture of leather. They talked about their worlds, about politics and culture and the vast differences between species. Tara was surprised to learn that humans had hundreds of religions, thousands of languages, millions of local customs. The Velarin were more unified. One language, one culture, one way of thinking. Does that not make things simpler? She asked. Maybe, but it also means less diversity, less innovation. Humans argue about everything. We disagree constantly, but that friction creates new ideas, new solutions. He looked out the viewport at the stars. Unity is good, but so is diversity. The Velarin Council would not agree. The Velarin Council isn't here. It's just us, he smiled. And I think you're starting to see that maybe your culture doesn't have all the answers. She was quiet for a long time. Then softly, perhaps you are right. That evening, as they approached the final hours of their journey, Tara called him to the cargo hold. I need to tell you something, she said, about what will happen when we reach the station. I'm listening. My sister Hyajin commands the nearest Velarin fleet. She is formidable, uncompromising. When she learns I was rescued by a human, she will see it as a failure on my part. Tara met his eyes. She will demand I face consequences, and she will demand consequences for you as well. What kind of consequences? For me, possibly demotion or reassignment. For you, charges of unauthorized boarding, theft of military data, and violation of Velarin sovereignty. Doyen whistled. That's a long list. I am telling you this because you still have a choice. You can drop me at the station and leave immediately. I will not mention your name. I will say I rescued myself. That's a lie. Yes, but it would protect you. He shook his head. I'm not going to let you lie for me. You didn't rescue yourself. I rescued you. If there are consequences for that, I'll face them. You would face Velarin military justice for me? For someone you barely know? I would face it because it's the truth. Because running away would make everything I did meaningless. He sat down beside her. Besides, maybe it's time your military learned that sometimes accepting help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Tara smiled. It was a genuine smile, warm and grateful. You are a very strange human, Doyen, but I am glad you found me in that asteroid field. Me too, Commander. Me too. Station 12 appeared on the sensors. Their 3-day journey was almost over. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Station 12 grew larger on the view screen. The massive structure rotated slowly in space, its docking rings lit with thousands of lights. Ships of every design and species came and went like insects around a hive. This was neutral ground where all species were welcome to trade and resupply. Doyen requested docking clearance. The station controller, a Korean with a bored voice, assigned them a berth and transmitted coordinates. We will arrive in 20 minutes, Doyen told Tara. How are you feeling? Better, strong enough to walk on my own. She stood to demonstrate. Her movements were still careful, but the pain seemed manageable now. Thank you. For everything. Save your thanks. We're not done yet, she nodded. My sister's fleet should be nearby. The station will alert them as soon as we dock. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. He began the docking sequence, guiding the wandering star toward the assigned berth. They docked smoothly. The magnetic clamps engaged with a solid thunk. Doyen powered down the main systems and stood, stretching muscles stiff from days in the pilot's chair. Ready? He asked. Tara straightened her uniform as best she could. It was torn and stained with blood, but she wore it with dignity. Ready? They exited through the airlock into the station. The corridor beyond was crowded with beings of a dozen different species. Traders, travelers, merchants. Everyone carefully ignoring everyone else in the way of busy spaceports everywhere. Doyen led the way to the medical center. It was located in the station's central ring, easy to access. The receptionist, a humanoid with blue skin, looked up as they entered. I need medical assistance for my passenger, Doyen said. She's Velarin, injured in a raider attack. The receptionist's expression shifted to professional concern. Of course. Please come with me. They were led to an examination room. A doctor arrived quickly, another Korean with experienced hands and a kind face. She examined Tara with efficient thoroughness. Your field medicine was adequate, the doctor told Doyen. She will recover fully with proper rest. The broken ribs will need another week to heal completely. Thank you, Tara said quietly. The doctor prepared medication and gave Tara instructions for recovery. While this happened, Doyen noticed station security had gathered outside the medical center. 3 guards armed and alert. Commander Tara of the Velarin Imperium. One of them called through the door. Tara stood. I am she. We've been instructed to inform you that Velarin military vessels have entered station space. They request your immediate presence. Understood. She looked at Doyen. It begins. They were escorted to the station's diplomatic section. The guards were polite but firm. This wasn't an arrest, not exactly. But they weren't being given a choice either. The meeting room was large and formal. A view screen dominated one wall. 3 Velarin warships floated in space beyond the station, massive and intimidating. The view screen activated. A Velarin woman appeared. She was tall like Tara, with the same golden eyes and scaled skin, but where Tara's face showed warmth, this woman's face was cold and hard. Sister, Tara said quietly. Commander Tara. The woman's voice was ice. I am pleased to see you alive. Disappointed in the circumstances of your survival. Hyejin, I can explain Can you explain why a human cargo hauler is standing beside you? Why you broadcast your location from a non-military vessel? Why you allowed yourself to be rescued by an inferior species? Each question was delivered like a weapon. Doyen stepped forward. She didn't allow anything. I made the choice to rescue her. She told me to leave. I didn't listen. Hyejin's gaze shifted to him. It was like being examined by a predator. You are the human responsible for this situation? My name is Doyen. I'm a civilian cargo hauler. I responded to a distress signal and provided medical assistance to an injured person. That's all? That is not all. You boarded a Velarin military vessel without authorization. You forcibly removed a Velarin commander from her post. You stole classified military data. Hyejin's voice remained cold and measured. These are serious crimes under Velarin law. I saved her life. You shamed her. You shamed the Imperium. That cannot be forgiven. Tara moved to stand beside Doyen. Sister, you are wrong. This human did not shame me. He showed me that strength comes in many forms. You defend him, after he violated every protocol, ignored your direct orders and treated you like a helpless child? Hyejin's control cracked slightly. Anger leaked through. You were a commander. You are now a symbol of Velarin weakness. I am alive, Tara said firmly. My ship was destroyed. My weapons were disabled. I was bleeding internally. I would have died within hours. The human, Doyen, saved my life when no one else was there to help. You should have died honorably rather than accept help from a human. The words hung in the air. Doyen felt shock run through him. She actually meant it. Better that her sister die than accept help from someone she considered inferior. No. Tara's voice was quiet but absolute. That is wrong, Hyejin. I know we were taught that accepting help is weakness, that dying alone is better than living with shame. But I have learned something in the past 3 days. She gestured to Doyen. This human risked everything to save a stranger who rejected him. He asked nothing in return. He expected no gratitude. He simply did what he believed was right. Humans are weak and emotional. Humans are compassionate and brave. Tara cut her off. They value life over pride. They understand that asking for help or accepting help is not weakness. It is wisdom. Hyejin was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was dangerous. You have been compromised by your time with this human. You will return to the fleet immediately. You will face military tribunal for your failures. I will return to the fleet. I will face tribunal if that is what you demand. Tara stood straight despite her injuries. But I will not lie about what happened. I will tell them that a human showed more honor than our own culture allows. That he saved my life and protected our alliance data when I could not. You will destroy your career, perhaps, but I will do it with truth rather than hiding behind our culture's pride. Doyen watched the exchange with growing respect for Tara. She was literally sacrificing everything to tell the truth. Her sister was right, this would destroy her career in the Velarin military. What about him? Hyejin gestured at Doyen. What do you demand I do with the human who violated our laws? I demand you do nothing. He broke your laws to save a life. If that is a crime in your eyes, then your laws are wrong. You go too far, sister. Do I? Tara moved closer to the view screen. 3 years ago, I commanded a squadron. We were ambushed. A neutral merchant offered help. I refused. 23 warriors died because of my pride. I have carried that shame ever since. Her voice cracked. Today I made the same mistake. I refused help from Doyen. I would have died and our alliance data would have been lost because I was too proud to accept rescue from a human. But he did not give me that choice. He saved me anyway. Hyejin's expression flickered. Something passed across her face. Understanding, doubt. 23 warriors, she repeated quietly. 23 deaths that could have been prevented if I had been less proud and more wise. Tyra's golden eyes were fierce. I will not let Velarin pride cause more death, not mine, not anyone else's. If that makes me unworthy of my rank, so be it. The silence stretched. Doyen could hear his own heartbeat. The station hummed around them. Outside, the 3 warships waited. Finally, Hyejin spoke. You have changed, sister. I have learned. There is a difference. Perhaps. Hyejin looked at Doyen again. Her expression was unreadable. Human, Doyen, you put me in a difficult position. By our laws, you should be arrested and tried, but my sister claims you saved her life. She has never lied to me before. I don't want to cause problems between your species and mine, Doyen said carefully. I just did what I thought was right. That is what troubles me. Hyejin leaned forward. You did what you thought was right despite our laws, despite our culture, despite my sister's explicit orders. That kind of thinking is dangerous. Or necessary, Tara interjected. Hyejin ignored her. I will make a decision. Human, you will not be arrested or charged. Consider this a recognition that different species have different values. What you did was illegal by our standards, but perhaps not wrong by yours. Doyen felt relief flood through him. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. You have created a diplomatic incident. The Velarin Council will want to discuss this situation. They will want to understand why a human felt authorized to board our military vessel and make decisions for our commander. I'll answer any questions they have. Good. Because you will be called to testify. So will my sister. Hyejin's attention shifted back to Tara. Return to the fleet. We will discuss your future in private. Understood. The view screen went dark. The meeting was over. Tara turned to Doyen. Thank you for standing with me. Of course, we're in this together now. He smiled. For better or worse? Most likely worse. But she smiled back. The Council will not be pleased. This challenges everything the Imperium believes about strength and independence. Maybe it's time those beliefs were challenged. She laughed. It was the first genuine laugh he had heard from her. You really are insufferable, human. I try my best. Station security escorted them back to their ships. They stood together at the docking ring, facing an uncertain future. What will you do now? Tyra asked. Go back to hauling cargo, I guess. Try to stay out. 3 months passed before Doyen heard from Tara again. He had returned to his normal routine, hauling cargo between colonies, avoiding trouble, trying not to think about golden eyes and impossible rescues. The Velarin Council had never called him to testify. He assumed they had decided to ignore the whole incident. Easier that way, less embarrassing for everyone involved. Then the message arrived. It was official, sealed with the symbol of the Velarin Imperium. Doyen stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Cargo hauler Doyen, the message read. Your presence is requested at Station 12 on the date specified below. You are invited to attend a diplomatic ceremony as an honored guest of the Velarin Imperium. Transportation and accommodation will be provided. This invitation is extended in recognition of your service to Commander Tara and the Alliance efforts between our peoples. It was signed by someone with a very long title that Doyen couldn't pronounce. He read it 3 more times. An honored guest, him, the stubborn cargo hauler who had broken 6 Velarin laws. He almost declined. This seemed like trouble, but curiosity won out, and maybe, just maybe, he wanted to see Tara again. Make sure she was all right. Station 12 was different when he arrived. The docking ring reserved for diplomatic vessels was much nicer than the cargo berths he usually used. Security met him at the airlock. They were polite but thorough. They scanned him for weapons, checked his identity 3 times, and finally escorted him to guest quarters that were far too luxurious for a simple cargo hauler. The ceremony begins in 2 hours, one of the security guards told him. Formal attire is recommended. Doyen looked down at his worn flight suit. This is all I have. The guard's expression suggested this was a common problem with humans. We have prepared appropriate clothing for you. It is in your quarters. The clothing turned out to be a simple but well-made suit, dark blue, formal without being stuffy. It actually fit him reasonably well. Doyen cleaned up, put it on, and tried not to feel too out of place. When the time came, security escorted him to a large conference hall in the station's diplomatic section. The room was filled with people. Velarin in military uniforms, humans in various formal wear, other species he didn't recognize. Everyone seemed important. Everyone seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Doyen felt very small and very out of place. Then he saw Tara. She stood near the front of the room, wearing a formal uniform he had never seen before. It was elegant, decorated with symbols of rank and achievement. She looked strong, healthy, confident. She saw him and smiled. That smile made the entire trip worth it. Doyen. She crossed the room to greet him. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? I was not certain. This kind of event is probably not comfortable for you. I've been to worse places. He looked around. What is all this? A treaty signing. The alliance I was trying to establish when I was attacked. It is finally happening. She gestured to the crowd. Representatives from 3 systems. Military leaders, diplomats, and one stubborn human cargo hauler who made it all possible. I didn't do anything. You had the data. You did the negotiating. I would be dead without you. The data would be lost. The alliance would have failed before it began. She met his eyes. You did more than you know. Before he could respond, a chime sounded. The crowd began moving toward seats arranged before a raised platform. Tara gestured for him to follow. She led him to a seat in the front row, right next to where she would be sitting. You are sitting with the dignitaries, he whispered. You are a dignitary now. Accept it, the ceremony began. It was long and formal, speeches in multiple languages, documents signed with great ceremony, promises of trade and cooperation and mutual defense. Doyen tried to pay attention, but his mind wandered. He thought about the asteroid field, about Tara's damaged ship, about her fierce refusal of help and his equally fierce insistence on giving it, about 3 days in the black watching over her as she healed, about the connection they had built across species and culture and completely different worldviews. Then he heard his name, and we must acknowledge, a Velarin official was saying, the human who demonstrated qualities we have long associated only with our own people. Courage in the face of danger, determination despite opposition, the willingness to do what is right regardless of the cost. Everyone was looking at him. Doyen felt his face heat up. Doyen of Earth, the official continued, you saved the life of Commander Tara and protected Alliance data at great personal risk. The Velarin Imperium wishes to recognize your actions. Tara leaned over and whispered, you need to stand up. He stood awkwardly. The official approached, carrying a small box. Inside was a medal. It was beautiful, made of some metal that caught the light and shimmered. This is the Star of Valor, the official said. It has never before been awarded to a non-Velarin. We give it to you now in recognition that honor and courage are not limited to any single species. Doyen took the medal. He didn't know what to say. Thank you seemed insufficient, but it was all he had. Thank you. I'm honored, the official smiled. It was a warm smile, genuine. We are honored to have you as a friend to the Imperium. Applause filled the room. Doyen sat down, clutching the medal, feeling overwhelmed. You deserve it, Tara whispered. I just did what anyone would do. No, you did what most would not. That is the difference. The ceremony continued. More speeches. More signatures. Finally, it concluded. The crowd began to disperse, breaking into smaller groups for conversation and celebration. Hygiene approached. Doyen recognized her from the view screen. She looked just as intimidating in person. Human, she said, then paused. Doyen, I wanted to speak with you. All right, she looked uncomfortable. Hygiene, who commanded warships and gave orders that decided the fates of thousands, looked uncomfortable talking to one cargo hauler. I was wrong, she finally said. About you, about what happened. I let pride cloud my judgment. My sister tried to tell me, but I did not listen. You were protecting your culture, Doyen said. I understand that. Understanding does not make it right. She glanced at Tyara, who was watching the exchange with interest. My sister has changed since meeting you. She questions things now. Challenges old assumptions. Some in the military see this as weakness. I see it as growth. She was always strong. She just needed to see that strength comes in different forms. Perhaps. Hyejin extended her hand in the human gesture of respect. Thank you for saving her life. For showing us that accepting help is not shameful. I am grateful. Doyen shook her hand. You're welcome. Hyejin nodded and moved away. Tara stepped closer. My sister never admits she is wrong. You have witnessed something rare. She loves you. That's clear. Yes, but she loves the Imperium more. That is the way of Velarine commanders. Tara looked around the room. But perhaps that is changing too. Slowly. They moved to a quieter corner of the hall. Through the massive windows, stars stretched into infinity. Ships came and went from the station, tiny lights against the darkness. What will you do now? Doyen asked. I have a new assignment. Liaison Officer for Human Velarine Cooperation. I will work to build understanding between our species. To create more opportunities for alliance and trade. She smiled. It is less dangerous than my old position, but perhaps more important. That sounds perfect for you. I think so too. And you back to hauling cargo? Probably. It's what I'm good at. You are good at many things. Saving stubborn alien commanders, challenging cultural assumptions, making people think about what really matters. She looked at him seriously. You could do more, you know. Help officially with the liaison work. We need people who understand both humans and Velarine. Doyen considered it. A real job. A purpose beyond just moving boxes through space. It was tempting. Let me think about it, he said. Take all the time you need. The offer will remain open. They stood together watching the stars. Two people from completely different worlds who had found common ground in the most unlikely circumstances. Doyun, Tara said quietly, I never properly thanked you. For not listening. For saving me when I was too proud to save myself. You don't need to thank me. I do, because you taught me something important. That accepting help is not weakness. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit you cannot do it alone. She turned to face him. I am glad you did not listen when I told you to leave. He smiled. Me too. A Velarine officer approached, needing Tara for some official business. She excused herself but promised to find him later. Doyen remained by the window, the star of valor heavy in his pocket. He thought about his old life. Hauling cargo, avoiding people, trying to forget the patients he couldn't save. He thought about his new life, whatever that might be. Maybe it was time to stop running. Time to stop hiding behind cargo runs and empty space. Time to accept that he was still a doctor at heart, still someone who helped people who needed it. He had just been doing it in a different way. The stars stretched before him, full of possibilities. Ships moved between them, carrying people and goods and ideas across the vast darkness. Each light was a life. Each life was important, each one worth saving. Tara returned an hour later. She found him still at the window. You are thinking very hard about something, she observed.